So it's come to my attention that I didn't answer enough questions about surviving concerts and what to do when you're in the pit and just stuff like that. So I'm here to answer more questions to hopefully relieve some of you of that concert stress, because I understand. One thing that I'm seeing frequently is that people are worried that if they have seats instead of like tickets for the pit, like instead of general admission, they're worried that they're not going to enjoy the concert as much. And I don't know if this is gonna sound mean, but what? You're going to a concert. It's gonna be such an experience. Doesn't matter where you are. If anything, it's gonna be better than general admission. You don't have to wait in line all day. Your seats are literally waiting for you. You'll probably be able to see the entire show, depending on your height, of course, but honestly, don't be worried about missing out on the concert experience just because you have a seated ticket. It's probably going to be better. You don't have to stress about anything. Which carries on to another question. When you have a seated ticket, it really doesn't matter when you show up. You can show up right when doors open. You can show up right before the opening act. You can show up after the opening act if you really want. For those who are waiting in line all day, some of you are worried about leaving the line to go to the washroom or to go get something to eat. Don't worry about that. I'm sure that the people beside you will know that that is your spot, and if you need to go to the washroom, they'll understand. I mean, people are usually pretty understanding of basic human needs, even just going for a walk. Like, it's all good. It's all good. People ask me where to go to the washroom. Well, that depends on what venue you're at. What I like to do if I'm going to a venue that I've never been to before, I'll look it up on Google Maps and just see if there's anything around it so that I know I'm not completely stranded. And then another question that people are asking me about is, how early do you need to go in order to get barricade or within like the first 2 or 3 rows? For certain shows like 21 Pilots, getting there very early is very important if you want to be that close. Another thing to consider is the size of the venue, because if you know that the venue is wide, then you'll have a better chance of getting close to the front even if you don't show up that early. If you're in a bigger city that does get a lot of concerts, you'll probably have to line up very early, like in the dead of night or the night before. And there are people who have commented like on my last video and have said, oh no, I showed up 3 hours before doors open and I got pushed to the front. Yes, that does happen, but it's not exactly ideal and it's not exactly a comfortable situation. So it's best and fairer and if you just go as early as you can. Somebody asked about people cutting in line. I'm gonna explain this in my situation at the 21 Pilots Ottawa show. This one is really hard to explain because I think, this is also my personal opinion, but I think there are unwritten rules about people cutting in line. So it's kind of hard to explain and you might not agree with it, but this is my personal opinion and my experience with it. So me and Lindsay got there at 3 a.m. and obviously as people came, they knew that me and Lindsay were the first ones in line, and Lindsay had to leave around 12, I think, to go to class, and she came back maybe around 4 or 5, which was still 2 hours before doors opened. But because she had waited that long and left, the people in line knew that we hadn't slept yet and that we were the first ones in line. But if you establish your place in line, even though Lindsay left for a few hours, she still came back and the people were fine with that because they knew that she had waited already a long amount of time. If somebody was in front of me and then like they had waited since like 8 a.m. with me and then their friends show up an hour or 2 before doors open, I would 100% tell their friends to go to the back of the line because that's not fair. Their friend can stay because they've been waiting since 8 a.m. But since the others showed up and only have to wait an hour or maybe 2 hours, it's really not fair. I'm hoping all of this can kind of be pieced together because I'm having such difficulty explaining it, but that's what I think about people cutting in line. And yeah, I do think there are unwritten rules about it so that there are certain cases where people can technically cut in line. I feel like that's gonna have a lot of backlash on me, but whew. So somebody asked about etiquette in the pit, and I do think this is something that I should maybe talk about because the pit is a crazy place. There's obviously going to be yelling and inevitable shoving. That's just stuff that you really can't escape when being in the pit. But there are some things that you should not do. The one thing that comes to mind is try and push yourself to the front. If you really want to be that close to the front, then you will have to wait as long as the other people wait. It's so unfair. It's so rude. Don't be that person. Like, yes, people do somehow get pushed to the front whether they want to or not, but just don't be the person who is forcefully trying to push people out of their way in order to get to the front. It's not cool, okay? For other concert etiquette, maybe try and be a decent person in there. When there is pushing against you, just sometimes know that the people around you are not the ones pushing. Like, it just happens, so don't always get angry at them, but if it is them pushing, you have every right to be angry at them. Another thing that people keep asking me about is, what do I do if I'm short? Well, a lot of the stuff that I mentioned in the last video, it's mostly for the safety of short people. The hair thing, the number of comments on that said, oh, I have really long hair and I left my hair down at a concert and it was fine. To you, maybe, but the person behind you was 100% choking on your hair, getting it stuck in their hands. Just because it's not a hazard to you doesn't mean it's not a hazard to other people. And that's a weird thing to say, but yeah, your hair can be hazardous, okay? So just keep it in a braid, please. For the short people's sake. Another thing for short people, if you're having slight trouble breathing, I don't know if I mentioned this in the other video, but try and get your arms up because just having air on your hands and your arms, and maybe if some can flow into your armpits, it's prime. It's really good and that'll definitely help you cool off. Again, if you're uncomfortable, no matter what height you are, if you're feeling very uncomfortable in the pit and you want out, let the people around you know. They will help you get out. People are asking about camping out for the 21 Pilots Emotional Roadshow in the summer. That tour is an arena tour, so there's almost no possibility of you getting front if you don't wait a long time. And I do have a feeling that since these are much bigger venues, that they're going to enforce the rules where you can't line up until a certain time. Most venues say that if you're waiting for a concert, you can't start lining up until 6 a.m. that day. If you can, try and contact the venue closer to the show so that you can get a feel of if you can camp out or if you can't. But basically, if you're going to see 21 Pilots this summer, yeah, there's a good chance you're going to have to wait about at least 12 hours. But again, the venues will be really wide, so even if you don't get there like right at 6 a.m., like maybe you get there at like 8 or 9, there's a good chance you're going to get first or second row. Yeah, I think I covered most common questions. And again, I'm sorry if I didn't answer or bring up any topics that you were curious about. And again, I'm sorry if I'm worrying you about the crowd and about how aggressive it might be. Not all crowds are like that. This video and the last video is not to claim that every single concert is going to be chaotic and that there's a 90% chance that you're going to pass out. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you need to be aware that these things can happen and that there are ways which you can prevent it from happening. I'm really sorry to the people that I've made nervous from this, but hopefully you can go into it with a strong head and still, oh my god, hopefully you can go into it with a strong head and still enjoy the concert. So I have to go and study now, and yep, this is a Panic at the Disco t-shirt. And I got it at Hot Topic if you're gonna ask where I got it. Time to go study! Yeah! Being a student is so stressful. Oh my god.